And now, for closing remarks, we will have Katharina in conversation with Ronald Jansen and Steve MacFeely, who are going to join us remotely. Ronald is the Assistant Director of the United Nations Statistics Division in New York, and Stephen MacFeely is a Director of Data and Analytics at the WHO.
Hello, everyone, again, and a very warm welcome to our two speakers. I'm delighted to moderate our closing remarks with you two, and my personal apologies for this misunderstanding that we had to let you wait. I'm very, very sorry for that. You have been introduced. I could introduce you some more, but maybe, yeah, I will, okay? Please. Thank you very much for being here with us today. Ronald Jansen is the Chief of Data Innovation and Capacity Development at the UN Statistics Division within the Department for Economic and Social Affairs. Ronald leads all of the global working group efforts, including the UN PET task team, who recently authored the UN PETS Guide and also the UN PETS Lab. Thank you so much for being with us today. Steve MacFeely, you are the Director of Data Analytics at the World Health Organization. Previously, you were the Head of Statistics and Information at the UN Conference on Trade and Development. And Steve has also been involved in a recent work that's called Toward an International Data Governance Framework, which intersects actually with the PET space in that sense that benefits for individuals and communities need to be balanced with innovation and proprietary data use with public good data use. So thank you so much again for being with us today. Ronald, if I may start with you, the UN has been one of the first to get on board with PETs in an official capacity with the creation of the UN PET Task Team, originally called UN Privacy Preserving Techniques Task, TEAC, back in 2018. May I ask you, where does this interest in PETs stem from?
Thank you, Katharina, and good afternoon. So Steve and I are here in Ottawa, still around lunchtime here. I work for the United Nations Statistics Division in New York. My office supports national statistical offices in the delivery of their work. Together we also work on international recommendations. And yes, within the context of trying to find the use of new technologies, big data, data science for official statistics, we also work on trying to improve the use of privacy-enhancing technologies for official statistics. So we look at this from a very particular angle. The reason PETs are important for statistical offices, I would say is threefold. One way it is that in this time, in this era of a lot more digital data sources, the statistical officers also would like to see if those data sources can be useful for getting improved output and a better delivery of their services. But for that, in some cases, you would have to access privately held data, such as mobile phone data or credit card data or other very sensitive data. And privacy-enhancing technologies could help in maintaining privacy of the original data, of establishing a trust relation between the data provider and the statistical agency. So access to data is one area. It's actually not only for private sector data. It could also be like government administrations, like tax offices, who are not really so willing to share this data in some countries with the statistical office. And if you would then have PETs to assure the privacy or the protection of privacy, that might help in making those data available. Another aspect for statistical offices is in processing and treating data. Given those kinds of new data sources, we also will more and more have to partner with either private sector, academia, or research institutes in making data properly, process data properly, and making them properly available. And so working with third parties in sharing those data, I think privacy-enhancing technologies would also be a key element to actually allow that, working with third parties. And finally, statistical officers will have a lot of microdata, which they would like to disseminate. They would like this to make this available to not only government agencies, but also to research institutes and to public at large. And in that aspect, having on the output privacy-enhancing technologies would make it possible to share as much micro information as while protecting privacy as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. That's so impactful, and so, that there's so much in there. Thank you so much. Steve, if I may ask you next, you've been leading the analysis of data, both at the UNCTAD and now the WHO, the World Health Organization. Have you seen many domains where data access and or trust and or policy has negatively limited your ability to bring about positive change, meaning has limited data access for privacy reason prevented benefits for humanity so far?
Thanks, Katharina, and hello, Dublin. It's a pleasure to be here. So, certainly we've seen problems with access inhibiting our work in a number of domains. I can't say for sure that privacy has been the reason. So let me preface my remarks, first of all, by just saying we're seeing a split in the data world, or an asymmetry, if you want, where there's increasing pressure on public data, on government data, to be opened up. And this is the open data movement. But we're seeing in a lot of cases a retrenchment on the private sector side as they realize the value of the data that they're holding. And now there's an increasing kind of move to try and monetize that. And we, in the UN and many national statistical offices, we get caught in the middle a little bit because we want to access a lot of those data. So if I can give you two examples. When I worked in UNCTAD, we did a lot of work on nowcasting, which is and what we're really trying to do there is produce up-to-date estimates of global trade, both merchandise and services trade, but also GDP on a weekly basis. So trying to come up with really, really timely estimates. Those estimates cannot rely on official data sources only. We have to rely on a lot of alternate data or supplementary data. Not all of the data that we would like to use are made available. And so that inhibits our work. But that's routine work, if you want, so it's maybe less critical. In the case of COVID, we had a more serious example where we have a global crisis, but this could be any crisis, and this is where we want to get access to maybe mobile phone data or some other type of data quickly, so that we can provide a public good that will inform emergency public policy to deal with the crisis. And that's taking too long, and sometimes we can't get access at all. And in those cases, certainly we're seeing problems with access, and that is inhibiting our work. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Steve. May I ask you a follow-up question right away? You recently authored toward an international data governance framework, which endeavors to balance many trade-offs between using data for public good and limiting the risks associated with misuse. Do you see PETs which enable dynamic data disclosure controls and or the ability to more easily join or analyze sensitive information with revealing granular data as a way to balance any of these desiderata?
Yeah, so let me give the audience a bit of background. So the UN has been, I guess, growing more and more concerned over fragmenting set of data ecosystems. And that could become problematic. So myself and Ronald were listening to the discussion just before we came on air. And you were discussing, the implications of artificial intelligence, but there's many more implications. Even if you take something as simple as trade and services is basically the movement of data around the world. And if there's barriers to that, then a lot of our modern economy won't be able to function efficiently. So there's huge trade-offs within the data world between trying to facilitate a modern economy, modern society, and yet protect either individual identities or even community identities. And there's also all of the issues around that are emerging around ownership. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the data space. So the UN Chief Executives Board, which is basically the Secretaries Generals of all the UN agencies, have asked the chief statisticians of the UN to work on this issue. So we've recently published, or the CEB has recently published, a paper called International Data Governance Pathways to Progress. And that's really trying to deal with these challenges. So pets, data privacy, and then as a possible solution, pets, that's only one small part of data governance. The data governance that we're discussing is much, much broader. But for sure, pets can and should, I think, play a very important role in the future of data governance. But I just want to emphasize it's a much broader issue than that, involving ethics, involving all sorts of things.
I understand. I hope we can come back to that in a bit. May I ask you, Ronald, with the Pet Guide released earlier this year and the ongoing work of the UN Pet Lab, what are the next steps toward realizing an ubiquitous usage of pets for public good? For example, engaging with broader working groups or more use cases. What can we look forward to?
Yes, thank you. Yes, let me also give a little bit of explanation about the work that has been done.
Please.
Starting out with the UN Pet Guide. So this guide has been put together by experts on privacy-sensitive technologies, not only from the national statistical offices, but we do have private sector like Oblivious is part of our group, and we have some civil society and academia in preparing that guide. And the guide shows the methodologies. It shows a lot of use cases, and then also some of the legal issues related to actually applying pets in practice. The use cases, I think, is what is important for further, let's say, implementation of pets in real situations, if you like. These use cases, and there are 18 of them, and Dave was just leading the earlier panel. So Dave Buckley is involved in our group also specifically in relation to putting together that inventory of that repository of cases that we have, and we also will continue adding new cases to it. Before I go to the question about how to go forward, let me give an explanation also on the UN Pet Lab. The Pet Lab, as the name maybe implies, we wanted to have some hands-on practical kind of first of all, experimentation in the area of pets applied to official statistics, where we implement this in a few statistical offices that are willing to try this. We've done this successfully on actually public domain data, but just to see how it could be shared between statistical offices. Using software tools, open source software tools from OpenMind, and the offices of US, Canada, The Netherlands and Italy were part of that first experimentation, which showed that it is possible. The U.S. actually, U.S. Census Bureau took this forward, trying to implement it in some of their practical cases, and I think that would be that are strong arguments if there are success stories in that way for other officers to also try and go that way. Steve mentioned some examples that could take place. I think examples which could be very convincing is if we can do this, for instance, in the health sector. We have some practitioners of the health sector in our group. If we can show that in the health sector we can apply pets successfully in sharing or accessing data, I think that is something that will help for statistical officers to also try and go forward with this. What we need to do is communicate. It's a very difficult topic, not only technically, but has a lot of legal aspects, as the previous panel also indicated, on the ethics, on all of the different authorities which are involved in trying to actually apply this in actual settings. So one area where we are spending a lot of time on is outreach, how to communicate this to those senior managers in various institutes which would be involved if you want to add, you want to use pets in making sensitive data accessible for, also for statistical officers in trying to produce good data for society. With that, back to you, Katharina.
Thank you. So I don't know if you have a hard stop. I mean, the hard stop would have been 6 minutes ago. So may I ask another question? Is that okay for you too? Thank you. Thank you. So to both of you, so the audience today includes a variety of different people from a variety of different fields, so regulators from 2 European countries, lawyers, academics, pet developers, data scientists, security professionals, and more. So if you were to make a call to action to us, to the group, what do you think we could collectively do to support the responsible adoption of pets for official statistics, but also maybe, Steve, as you were referring to this broader implication of international data governance pathways, and maybe there's something we should keep in mind also from the broader perspective. What can we do? How can we help your work? This is actually the work for all of us.
Will I start?
Yep.
Yeah, so great question, thank you. So what I would encourage everybody to do is think about not just pets, but the entire data ecosystem, the dataverse, whatever you want to call it, that we live in today, and just how pervasive and ubiquitous it is, how it's affecting almost everything we do. You know, we're generating data as we speak here, we're consuming data all the time. So how do we protect access to that? How do we ensure that at least some data are protected as public goods so that we can continue to produce good quality, robust public policy? But how do we protect communities at the same time? How do we facilitate trade, again, without betraying individual or community privacy? How do we strike a balance between all of these things? So maybe a good first step is, at the moment, at the UN, there's a discussion going on about the formulation of a global digital compact. And data is a huge part of this discussion. So on the UN website, I think it's called Our Common Good Policy Blogs, you'll see a blog on the Global Digital Compact. I would encourage everybody to read that and think about the issues, both on the digital side, but also on the data side. It's a much broader discussion, as I said, than privacy, but privacy obviously is at the heart of this. If we can't protect our identities, then not only society, but future economies are really going to be in crisis. So please have a look at that document, and then as communities, try and figure out how can you engage in that debate, what can you bring. We really want to hear the solutions from the different communities, because it's crucial that everybody's engaged, because unlike a lot of previous discussions, data are so pervasive. This can't just be about member states agreeing. This has to be member states plus civil society plus the private sector. They all have to have an equal voice in this discussion. Back to you.
Thank you so much. Ronald, thank you so much, Steve.
Yeah, if I add on to that, so I mean, it's continuing on what Steve is saying, that, and also where we are focusing on now with the UN Pet Lab is communication materials. So the perspective from what you just mentioned, Katharina, all these different stakeholder groups, which are also in the room there. So we would like to have the dialogue with them about what is it that is important from their perspective, and what are the convincing arguments about use and applying of these privacy enhancing technologies to make it possible to make much more use of detailed sensitive data. I mean, the ultimate objective, of course, is to deliver better data and better services to society based on those microdata. So you have to make that case that the value is in there, but then each of those stakeholder groups has to have a different perspective about where their sensitive criteria are for actually applying this kind of technology and for allowing that to happen. So we like to understand better those perspectives. We want to, in that sense, and also get communication materials. We know that in current circumstances, sensitive data are being used in certain circumstances. We think that privacy-enhancing technologies can serve a very good purpose there to make it more secure. I think there was a lot of misunderstanding or, let's just say, a lack of knowledge in many communities about this. And I think going forward, we really like to have that dialogue and see that people understand what it can do and make actually data available for society, which can improve services for the public, can improve services for policies as well. Thank you.
I can't thank you more. It was so extremely impactful and inspiring to have you here. Is there any audience question that you would like to ask right now, as we theoretically have a few minutes left, although we're already over time? Because otherwise, I just want to thank you again. It really made me feel we're part of something bigger, and it's really inspiring. Thank you so much for spearheading this work and letting us be part of it, or like making the call for us to be part of it and showing us the way how we can do that. And I hope everyone feels as inspired as me. And thank you again so much for being here today with us, and sorry for letting you wait again. Thank you so much.
It's our pleasure.
Bye.